is up? This is the Keyholing podcast. I've got Tali with me this week. We're going to talk about actual solutions for violence while nobody cares. How are you doing today, Tali?
I'm doing good. I actually got to do some gun stuff earlier. I went to the range and then also had to go to my FFL to put in my paperwork to pick something up later next week. So it's all on topic, on brand.
Based, and I understand you had a FUD boomer interaction at an FFL, and for the love of God, could boomers please just hurry up? Like, you weren't even picking up a gun. You were just
No,
literally going.
he was like in between a couple of like paperwork for like a couple of different things, and then there was one other person in the store. It's Monday. Obviously, like coming back from CanCon, I had the extra day off just to kind of like reset and get everything good. And so I went in there. There was one other person in the store, but he was like on his phone. And then he was like doing paperwork for like somebody's else's something, but it wasn't even that guy. It's like it was just paperwork that he was doing. And then he helped me, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm picking this up, or I'm putting in my paperwork, blah blah blah." And he was like, "Okay, cool. Have you done your form yet?" And I was like, "No, because in Maryland, so you have for anything that's a handgun purchase, you have to do a 77R form with the Maryland State Police, which is like their background check. And so you go in, you do the 77R form, and then you take the PIN code and the application number into your FFL. But my FFL, they like have a computer there where you can just do it. And I just think that it's easier just so that I have all the information right in front of me when I do like the actual like signed paperwork. That I just do it that way. But he like started to get me like set up, and I'm like going, and then he like goes back to doing something else, and he just like taking like so long to do anything. And it's funny, the FFL that I go to is the only reason that I go to it is because it's like the cheapest shit ever. I think it's like $30 as opposed to like 50 or 75 at the two other FFLs that are within my area. I don't know if that's because it's a Baltimore thing or Maryland or whatever. But it's so bad. There's like something about Cuba wanted change in like 19 blah 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 blah, and then there's a sticker that has like Obama's inauguration date. It says like the first day of the American Holocaust. It's like it's so bad. And like now that I have like a range membership and like somewhere else to send them, I will be going elsewhere. But this place is like a total like trip. It's so bad. Oh my god.
And
But
I find that's like often the case. Like cheap FFLs are often like the most cursed. Like the first cheap FFL I went to was all filled with like pro MAGA, like the Donald Trump stuff. That's pretty frequent. Their second FFL, so there was some drawbacks. The I mean it was dirt cheap. Like cheap I'm in like the general South was $10. So $10 is crazy cheap. But
yeah.
Ronald Reagan signs, a ton of also I was wanting something to mention to people, a ton of thin blue line stuff. That's going to be pretty
Yeah.
much at every FFL, every
Who's
gun.
gonna take them?
Yeah,
Who's coming to take them if they come to take them?
exactly. And it's like we support cops, so we'll often have like cop fundraisers, like things out, like promotional stuff out. And literally, it's who takes guns from the community you're in right now.
Yep,
Cops, absolutely. But they did have a dog at that one, so I feel like the
that's cute.
dog at least canceled out the Reagan
Blatant racism and yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I've got, you see, I'm soy jacking here at a therapist couch. Today we're going to talk about the solutions to gun violence. Well, violence in general, but I mean, in particular, gun violence, us both being in like the gun, air quote, community. And the first point I want to bring up is expansion of social programs to meet needs. I don't like have the data with me. You guys can look it up. There's this thing called the internet, but you're just gonna have to take my word for it. People that have their needs met commit less violence, right? Like simple,
100%.
simple as like if you have food, if you have your needs met, you are less desperate, you are less hungry, you are if you have your medicine, you have a clearer mind. The second one I want to point out, and this probably affects lots of listeners is free, accessible public ranges. So essentially, anyone that lives in a metro area, or many states don't even have public land to go shoot on. Uh, and my thought being is, if you build like a hobbyist culture around it, where people can go and shoot and like have a good time and feel there's a place they're safe that they can go shoot, it will create safer, more informed, more well trained gun owners.
100%.
And so in Maryland, do you guys have like land to publicly shoot on? Do you have free public ranges?
No, so it's actually really funny for me coming from California and especially like Northern California, Eastern Slope area, like towards the Nevada border. And I actually did live in Nevada for quite a while. I come from like an area where there's BLM land everywhere. Like there's places for you to go to shoot everywhere. And even like not even just like California and Nevada, but like over like I lived in South Dakota. I went to high school in South Dakota. So there's a huge amount of like free access to public land. We actually near the town that I grew up in is a place called Beretta Road, which is like you just go out there and you can mag up into trash, which is amazing.
That rocks.
Yeah, it's so cool. I haven't been back in a long time, but so all of the West with like the free open land to be able to go out and shoot on, or even stuff that's like managed by like Bureau of Land Management that is like a range that you go in and you like donate and it's like actually like designated as a range. There's lots of stuff like that in the West, but now living in Maryland, I think there is one range technically that's closer to me. That is an outdoor range, but you need a membership to a gun club with that operates with them, and then you also need a membership to that range specifically. So there's a cost prohibitive aspect there. Firstly, and then the other one that is close to this area, the metro area, is all the way out like in the East Bay. So it's like across the Bay Bridge. Like I think it's like 2 hours from me. So getting to like outdoor ranges, which are, you don't have to worry. It's not that you don't have to worry. It's just like it's better for things like, how much sound is going on, how busy it's going to be, like your proximity to other people, like that sort of stuff. Like it's incredibly prohibitive in this area. So that's my experience with it. I personally have a membership to an indoor gun range, but they're great. They have been like named the friendliest gun range in the state, and they really, really are. I've gotten to talk to the owner and a couple of the other employees. Like I know them well enough now that like, they give me shit coming in and stuff, which is great. So building a relationship there and like finding a resource that, is open and accepting is really great, but still it's an indoor range, which sucks. Especially like coming from being used to like, oh, I can go, anywhere. And then now having to be like, okay, yeah, I have to go to an indoor range kind of sucks. But
I before we go further, I totally forgot. I didn't mention your at. So
oh yeah, okay. It's I can kind of talk about that a little bit. So I go by Neighborhood Actual on Instagram. I started working with A Better Way 2A about a year ago now. Actually, it's over a year now. Time is so flying by. But essentially after like getting into it and working with it, getting more experience myself, I did grow up around firearms for most of my life. I grew up on a ranch. They're tools. They've just been around. My entire family holds pretty left-leaning values. And so when I started to like leave and expand after, I left home, I was finding people that had like very similar values to me. They were like, ooh, gun bad, like, all of that. And I totally understand. I mean, given the kind of controversial nature of it, especially in the United States, at least from like a left-leaning perspective, the vast majority of what I saw was like, it was mostly about like protecting, children, especially with like the school shootings and things like that. There wasn't, and I mean, like sometimes crime, but like the places that I was living, like gun violence wasn't a huge thing because I lived in mostly rural areas. And so now that I'm kind of like really injecting myself into the gun world, like with both feet, it was kind of explained to me that I should make a page and kind of help people learn along with me as I'm getting to like get more experience and fundamentals and learning more and being able to explain it from the perspective of someone where it's like fresh in my mind, even though I've been around the industry a little bit. So
And I highly recommend everyone follow you. You're sweet and funny, and you are actually just so nice. But really, I think that's a great perspective that's lacking in a lot of the like gun content we see. Uh, and I think that you will carve out that niche because it's so important to empathize with people that are new or learning. And I think there's this idea in the gun community that it's like, oh, if you don't know this, you're a fucking idiot. Like,
yeah,
wow,
that's
like wow, I've never met anyone dumber because you haven't shot this specific can before.
right.
And I
I
think like
think yeah.
discouraging that is like going to bring in new gun owners, and I think that's the most important thing is just bringing in new gun owners, making it a welcoming space, making it a space where they feel like they can learn without a judgment or anything of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been incredibly lucky because, like, obviously, the first people that I fell in with were the A Better Way 2A crew, and Jordan and Andrew are hilarious and incredibly welcoming and warm. But then also getting into like the in range people have been absolutely wonderful to me. I also have I don't know, like if I just have one of those faces or something or maybe it's the direct way that I ask things, but I very much sometimes get self conscious about like, oh, I don't know how to do this. But as I've learned, like, growing up and through life is like asking people directly and being like, hey, I'm going to be so for real with you. I have absolutely no idea how this works. Can you like please explain this to me? Most of the time, people have been absolutely wonderful. Even people like if, like, obviously, like I said, I was just recently at CanCon and I had talked to a couple of people just about some basic concepts. Everyone was super welcoming and willing to kind of like go over that. The problem is that I find and why I've decided to kind of like come into like making content about it is when you look for content of it, there is no one being like, hey guys, I also have no idea what's going on. Let's find out together. It's all people that are either just like so far in the weeds that it's like kind of hard to disseminate information from what they're saying if you don't have like a basis and a background in it, or it's aimed at not you. Like it's really, really difficult to find like friendly, engaging, encouraging gun content, especially for people that have, more left leaning beliefs or values or political spectrum or people that are queer or women. There are some resources, but like even with like being like a person that like identifies as like femme, some of the stuff, the content that you see is still going to be like the weird, like Christo-fascist, like trad wife gun content out there as well. Or like kind of more on the gun bunny spectrum, which there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Do what you will. But for some people, that's not their flavor. So that's kind of where I'm trying to wiggle my way in is just be like, hey, I'm just a guy and this is what I'm doing. And I want you to know too, so that you can be safe and protect yourself.
And that's awesome. And I want to add one thing. I feel like so much of gun content is trying to sell people something, right? Like
Yeah.
the classic like recce rifle, where every YouTuber was like, "You need a recce rifle," and then shortly after that, you had the truck gun, which truck guns have been around for a while, but the urban warfare trend, and so a lot of that is so cringe, and not I think just not trying and forcefully trying to sell people something will go over so well. And you, not just in guns, but seem to have a passion for learning, so I think that will translate as well.
Yeah, that's the hope anyway.
So continuing, kind of talking about learning, create gun education curriculum in schools. And Jordan from A Better Way 2A has posted about this recently. And the idea being that school districts can handle gun education, and I think that's great with the caveat. Um, and we're roughly the same age. Many listeners will remember this as well. The DARE program, just complete abstinence, and you will die if you touch a gun. I'm scared of that becoming the prevailing voice, particularly with gun control groups being involved. Is there an aspect of you that believes this could be a good program, that believes this could actually help people?
So, I mean, that's kind of the thing of it is like, firstly, depending on school district and like depending on who wants to be involved, I think that it's something that like both sides need to sit down at the table, right? And like have a discussion as to how that's supposed to look. Um, I will say though, like once again, like you brought up, not even just the DARE program, but even just something as easy and simple as sexual education,
A
right?
hundred
Is
percent,
something that is
yeah.
like so fucking controversial for no reason that people are like, well, this is blah, 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 blah. And so for me, in theory, I think that it's a great idea because I think that if you're having kids across the country sit in classes and having to like go through the motions of like essentially like CQB self defense situations where you're like acting out like school shooter and active shooter drills, like if I think if you're subjecting children to that, they should also have at least a little bit of gun education, like even something as basic as like the hunter safety course that they offer, you know, nationwide. I think that something needs to be done, and I think that having that second piece to it, as well as you know, active shooter drills, should also be incorporated. The problem is when you say both sides need to sit down. It's like, okay, so we have, you know, every town, and then we have the NRA. So it's like, while I like agree with like some of the things that both of those parties do, it's like firstly they're gonna butt heads 100%, so I don't know if anything productive is gonna happen. I think that it's something that also needs community input. I also think that it's something that needs expert input from people that have, you know, varying beliefs on it as well. Like it's not something that's perfect, and it's not something that you're going to be able to pass a nationwide curriculum, um, other than like maybe the basics. But it's very similar to like anytime that you talk about gun legislation in general, I feel like people forget that the people that are making this legislature, like the legislature, for the most part, on the whole, on like the Democratic side or the like liberal or left leaning side, don't have any fucking experience with guns at all. For example, in Maryland, so we have a capacity law for magazine capacity. However, it is not illegal to have it. You just cannot purchase it in the state of Maryland, nor can you purchase it online and have it sent to the state of Maryland. So I can only have 10 rounds in a magazine for handguns and rifles, or I can drive, you know, 45 minutes to Pennsylvania where there is literally an armory sitting right across the border, and I can buy, you know, a 60 round drum mag, and then I can bring it home and I can have it and I can take it to my ranges and I can shoot it. But that's not something that makes anything safe for anyone. You've not done anything other than make it, I guess, slightly more inaccessible because you have to leave the state. But that's not going to prevent anything from happening with an extended mag if it's still something that's allowed within the state. So it's just the kind of thought that would have to go into a program would be, I feel like, very much like it would be very labor intensive, and I feel like it would need a lot of public oversight so that people could actually see what was going on, which is, I think, something that lacks just broadly across any gun legislation. But for me personally, I think that it is a good idea.
I do as well, but I kind of echo a lot of your sentiment actually, in that there's not transparency in anything in our fucking government. I think generally people can agree that governmental bullshit and red tape harms so much because it prevents so much from getting done. And one thing I do want to mention about the liberal side, because people would consider us both left or even far left potentially. But, and before anyone's like, we have friends across the political spectrum. we
100%.
we both separately but went shooting with friends across the political spectrum recently. Like, it's the idea that you can't have community or can't be with people because of their beliefs is stupid as fuck. But there's this idea that it's like, oh, so if you don't want to commit to these red flag law restrictions and magazine limits, then you don't want to do anything about gun violence. And I don't think that's obviously bad faith, but I don't think that's true of anyone. Like, I think everyone recognizes gun violence as bad, right? Like,
Yeah, nobody sees gun violence and they're like, actually, this is really fucking cool. Like nobody thinks that. Nobody is excited. Well, hopefully nobody is excited about like the harm of innocent lives, especially not children. Um, so yeah, it's
And you mentioned too, there's if this is taught correctly, there's no drawbacks. There is no drawback to a student who's not even interested in guns learning how to make a gun safe, right? Like,
right.
if they're at a friend's house and they find a gun, hey, let's not play around with this, let's make it safe.
Which even by every town's own statistics is like a big problem.
Absolutely.
Like they're accidental. So like having that instruction and having people understand like this is what a firearm is, this is what it does, here's how to make it safe, here's what to do if you find one. Like those are very important.
And the Everytown and Brady response to that is, I'm trying to word it where like it's favorable to them because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think a lot of them are grifters, but I think some legitimately do care about children. And the response is, oh, you just want to sell them things from the gun industry. And it's like making a gun safe isn't selling anything. Making a learning how to make a gun safe, how a gun works, how each gun is different. None of that is selling anything. And I understand their concern with this idea of being sold stuff, but that's really everything, right? Like, that's it, like saying in driver's ed you're being sold a car, which
Right.
it's not like, yes, like you're understanding how a car works and the rules, but you aren't necessarily like, I don't even remember what I took my driver's ed in. I don't even remember the car. And so I think that's a pretty simple like rebuttal to that, to just say obviously everyone cares about gun violence. Obviously we don't want people selling stuff to kids in schools. Which, I mean, not to get on too much of a tangent, but the American military targeting low income schools and students is pretty fucked up, and I count that as selling in schools.
Oh
But
yeah, absolutely.
but there's this idea, and like I think we, in general, I think the gun community is improving in it, in this idea of rejecting and completely disarming those responses. But I think a more cordial level of communication needs to be brought in when you're talking to Everytown and Brady, and legitimately acting in good faith, and not only acting in good faith but being charitable. I think if we're not charitable and as open as possible and calm, reasonable in our responses, like, yes, dunking feels good, and I will never stop dunking on them. It feels good. But I think, especially the individuals that support it, they need to understand that it's like every gun person isn't a crazed psycho, it, and really get that and really just truly accept that gun education is for the best. Now, is that reasonable? Yes. Is that reasonable in their mind? Obviously not. They're going to fight tooth and nail on this. In fact,
Right.
every town recently had a gun education program with a veteran. It ran by a veteran where it's like, it was very simple stuff, like even just regular, like, don't point it at yourself, that type of bullshit.
Right.
And and people within every town were like, wow, I feel betrayed. I can't believe I supported this group. And so there's always going to be that edge of the spectrum, and I think discrediting them is the way to go. And providing gun knowledge. I think you mentioned earlier helping people that don't know or don't understand, and being willing to ask questions. And I encourage that in 3D printing. I know you're not into the 3D printing as much, but it asking questions, not being afraid to answer questions honestly, talking about an AR-15, accepting that it's a weapon of war, right? Yes, it's a weapon of war. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it's meant to shoot people, and that's fine. Like, but and continuing the government has a monopoly on power conversation from there. But I think this FUD idea of gun grabbers kind of needs to shift to the wayside. What are your thoughts on, and how much do you see of those behaviors in the gun community?
Hmm. Um, like in the kind of like left leaning anti gun community, like how much do
Yes,
I see
yeah,
it?
like
Yeah. So I think, and I had a conversation about this recently, just about people in general, right? And especially with what's going on right now. I've been told I have an incredible amount of patience, because whenever I have an interaction with a person, especially if I can see that it from they're speaking from the height of their point of knowledge, right? And they're defending their points based on, information that they've been given. And I think, especially in this country right now, you have people on all sides who have done what they consider best with the information that they had. And unfortunately, a lot of that information is wrong. A lot of that information is propaganda. A lot of that information is, ill informed or comes from people that they trusted. But the thing is, like, not everyone's perfect. And you just kind of, you have to do what you can with what you have. And unfortunately for the American people, and one of the reasons why we are, having a lot of the issues that we're having now, is they've continued to do that and continued to be let down. So you have a group of incredibly broken, incredibly, scared, incredibly upset, and rightfully so angry people that have been sitting around like, I did what you told me, I did what you told me, and it's still not better. I did what you told me, and it's still not better. And that's kind of what you see on all sides. So it doesn't matter if it's, one issue or another. I see a lot of people on the left that are anti-gun that are just like, we've done everything that we thought that we were supposed to, and we've been fighting, tooth and nail because we want to protect kids, or we want to reduce gun violence, or we want to do a B or C thing, but they don't have any information about it. They've never shot a gun in their life. They don't understand how gun legislature has affected gun culture, specifically for just law abiding, normal everyday citizens. And so that's, I think, the main problem that I see with it, and I do see it often, is just having conversations with people where they just genuinely do not understand. And all they see is the fear aspect of it. All they see is, the propaganda that they've been sold about gun bad. And so that's kind of why I think the work that Jordan and A Better Way 2A, and hopefully soon, if I am able to get content out myself, is that's why I think it's so important. Is like, these are people that are calm, level-headed, and have the patience and the time to talk to you about these issues and give you information and like have discussions with you. And I think that's what's the most important, is having those discussions, like you were saying, in like a calm, level-headed manner, and just showing people like, this is where it comes from. This is what we're doing. This is why it's important.
no, definitely. And I think what we just talked about is gun education curriculum would solve a lot of that. Like not just guns themselves, but like gun history, like explaining the NFA, explaining Ronald Reagan, explaining the history of the Thompson, explaining how silencers made their way onto the NFA.
Which is crazy. I just recently found out about that because obviously I was doing all of this research to like do my silencer video for CanCon. And we find ourselves in a similar predicament right now. I guess the government may not be closed for very much longer, but during the Great Depression, they thought that people were going to try and feed themselves.
And
How droll.
yeah, and it's like, wow, you learn that, and then they immediately become less scary in a way, right? It's like, oh wait, why did they? And many of these, like, I don't want to say anti-government, but maybe anti-establishment. Many of these anti-establishment people, and this sentiment has grown as like the government's failed people, right? The government has absolutely left people behind. You mentioned liberals being upset because they've potentially done everything they've been asked, and it's true, and nothing changes. It's funny. Joe Biden himself said it when we were going into 2020. He said
Nothing will fundamentally change.
Nothing will fundamentally change. Absolutely, and people are starting to see through that. And I think gun education curriculum would so much help the fear, help the anger. It would really help stymie those and kind of create a more positive discussion around this. However, like you mentioned, if it's fear based, if it's sex ed based, where they just show you a fucking herpes or show you something crazy, it's like the worst outbreak ever, right? They show you, we're gonna go back to seventh grade here, the blue waffle or something of that nature. And they say if you ever have sex, this will happen to you and your genitals will fall off.
Don't have sex because you will get pregnant and die.
No, definitely. And it's like if they just show bullet wounds and say, if you touch a gun, you're gonna explode yourself. You're gonna shoot yourself and you're gonna bleed out and die. If that's
Right.
the result, or if it's police teaching and saying, which I don't even like. We could do a whole podcast on police being dog shit at shooting and having basically zero training requirements, essentially. But if it's police doing this, if it's school resource officers, for the love of God, doing this, I am very dubious and don't believe it will be helpful in pretty much any way. But there is hope, and I encourage anyone who's interested in gun education to maybe look into setting up one of these programs, to look into putting out stuff. Better Way 2A, that's how Jordan started, is he just started putting shit out and posting stuff. And so if you're interested, like Tali, and you think you can tell a story and give people context, YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, any social media is going to be the primary learning platforms for children, for kids. I think giving, especially young people, a chance to ask questions, to learn, to understand these stories is so important. And I kind of want to transition from that fear-based to talk about my last point here. And I think that's, regardless of any of these gun things go through, regardless of any of these other points, I think this might be the most important one. I think work with local fire departments and EMTs to train students and stop the bleed.
I think honestly, stop the bleed is probably more like necessary, like before gun education. Honestly, stop the bleed and first aid. I also think that basic first aid should just be a requirement in schools. I think that that's something that should be a nationwide curriculum at like a certain age, like probably like seventh grade. Everyone just do it. I remember, I think that's my first time that I took a first aid class was to do like lifeguard shit. And I was probably about seventh grade. But yeah, no, I think that that's something, and Girl Scouts also. I did Girl Scouts back in the day.
But no, and I think that's so important, especially, and I even like, you mentioned in Girl Scouts and in seventh grade, I even like a tiered system where we say, hey, we teach kids about these things, applying pressure to a wound, very simple ideas at a younger age, where you should apply pressure, how hard you have to push, things of that nature, and then go into further, like, testing with dummies, as you get older, as they get older, and even into high school. I think there, again, we talk about there's no drawbacks to making a gun safe. There is no drawback to having a student understand how to save someone's life. There's no drawback to it. And
Right. There's literally nothing wrong. Like, it's only positive.
it's only positive. And free IFACs, obviously not with like tourniquets or anything of that nature, but with some burn gel, with some ibuprofen, a piece of candy, gauze. These things wouldn't be hard to procure and give students. Like, they wouldn't. Yeah. Simple as. These students are going to be driving cars. These kids are going to be doing all sorts of kid shit. I remember, like, trying to climb onto roofs and do all sorts of dumb shit as a kid.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There's no negative to kids being able to help someone, help increase the time this person has before, like, paramedic first aid, doctor first aid is rendered.
Mm-hmm.
And do you see that, like, what would your selling point be to liberals in explaining that and fighting for that?
Unfortunately, like, as much as I would like to be able to just like broadly label something as a way, or it could be done this way, I think that this is something that has to happen like very much like on a community level. So I see a lot of times people talk about like this idea of like mutual aid, right? And I think that the online left especially has kind of like lost the like actual understanding of what mutual aid is. I think in a situation or society where you are a person who could be an instructor, I'm not an instructor yet, although I will be looking into getting my licenses this coming summer. um, but I think that as a person who is an instructor, being able to offer these courses to young people, or being able to like do community engagement and like do this as something that you offer for free, the exchange there obviously is like a better working and like more informed younger populace in terms of, gun education. But once again, it's like I don't think that it's difficult to have a broad conversation when so many people have so many things, like ideas about what it is based on their locality, based on what's going on regionally. Like a conversation with a anti-gun Democrat or liberal in a place like Missoula, Montana, is going to go a lot differently than it is in a place like Baltimore, Maryland. Because everything is going to look differently, like culturally. This country is so vast and so broad. There's so many different kinds of people here. There's so many different kinds of cultures here, that it's difficult to have like a one size fits all solution, or even a one size fits all conversation that you can bring nationally. But I mean, I think if I were to suggest anything, just to start, of like, firstly, there's no negatives, there are no drawbacks to being able to make a situation safe if you find it unsafe, and there are no drawbacks to being able to administer, like you were talking about, first aid. So that's kind of like where we come from. But I mean, at the same time, it's like we have trouble, being able to fund classrooms as it is. So this is now another imposition that we've put on teachers. In school districts that already can't, afford to pay to educate our children in the first place, which I mean, obviously leads into the broader issue of like what helps, end or significantly reduced violent gun crime, being able to take care of our populace. If a government exists, it should be taking care of its people. And if it's not taking care of its people, there's no reason for it to exist.
No, absolutely. And I think you're totally right. I consider, when we talked about the expansion of meeting needs, I consider education a need. Like, I think the government not is required to teach people, but I think it should facilitate the teaching of people, as far as giving resources to these community leaders who want to teach this. And I love your point about personalizing it and it being different for each area. For example, you may focus, like if you're in Montana, like you mentioned, you may focus on injuries with horses or injuries with animals, right, in the Stop the Bleed. You may focus more on hunting weapons, a variety of hunting weapons in an education program. And I think it really is up to these community leaders. If you see a group in your community that is, you feel is responsible and helpful, I suggest being able to teach Stop the Bleed, becoming a teacher, helping local kids learn how to shoot. When you go to the range, if there's a kid and their dad there, talk to them. Let them shoot your gun if they've never shot it before. One of my most rewarding experiences was I took my Hoffman AR to the range, and there was a kid there who was shooting a 1022 with his dad. Was awesome. And I saw him looking at it, and I was like, "Do y'all want to come over and shoot it?" And the way his eyes lit up when he shot it is like I'm getting goosebumps right now. It made me feel so full and just complete, helping a child be the first rifle, like actual AR that they've ever shot. And so I encourage people to like reach out, build these connections, and I think in building these connections, we find that growth in those areas of improvement. Because you're right, counting on the government, you'll be waiting your entire fucking life, and nothing will change. Like the red tape we mentioned earlier, or just the fact that they are evil lizards who hate people and want us to die.
Right.
My friend Yeezy Print stays the topic of discussion because he makes electric products like this. Are those level 4 plates doormat? Very, very sick. We've got the Hunt the Rich camo shirt, magnets, hats, stickers as well. Arm the Poor, Eat the Rich, a classic, one of his first launches that went very well. Super cool. People really enjoyed this. And my favorite here, I'm not going to say it. It is spicy, but it's what the Second Amendment is for. It's actually called the Second Amendment Collection. And you can support the channel by using the link in the video. I'll put it in the description below this video. And in the podcast description as well. Some cool stickers. Your papa didn't run shine through these hollows for you to be a bootlicker. And ain't that right? Salute Yeezy Prints. Check out American Years of Lead. I really recommend checking out Calliope Design on Etsy. The camo scrunchy hair ties. Very sick. Tons of cool patterns. ABU, Chalky Chip, Desert Night, Flecktarn, Greek Lizard, Tiger Stripe, Multicam, UCP Delta. Rave reviews. 44 reviews, all 5 stars. Very reasonable price, $6. Zoe, the designer and maker, is actually in the 3D2A community. She's designed multiple accessories, worked on multiple guns. Very cool to support someone in the community. And today, the day this episode is coming out, Black Friday, 4 new scrunchy camos, Alpenflage, Swedish M90, M81 Woodland, and a purple woodland like Rothko joint that's absolutely sick. Reminds me of the Dudley Boys. Again, Calliope Design. I did want to bring a couple of good lib ideas, I thought, and bounce them off you to see what you thought. From Blue Sky, I asked, what are some ideas for gun control? And the first one is ban lead. So the entire concept of lead, try and ban lead and see if that reduces gun violence. The feasibility of this has me questioning, and part I want to discuss too, when you're discussing like gun control with liberals, if they aren't acting in good faith and if they're being unreasonable. For example, we both know, but people we're close to may not, a assault weapons ban or any kind of mass weapons ban in the United States isn't possible. It's physically impossible.
There's too many.
There's
just too many of them.
Yeah, the numbers say it's physically impossible. Like, you can wish all you want, you can hope guns don't exist, but it's not physically possible.
Right.
It's not physically possible. It just like banning lead. Like, of course we laugh and think this is absurd, but there are people who legitimately think this due to their lack of education. And so...
I'm not saying you should go eat lead.
No.
But I don't think that it's going to do anything in the reduction of gun violence. Because, I mean, I don't know. There's people that go and shoot at indoor ranges their entire life, 1 time a week. And they're not out there, committing crimes.
No, definitely. And also it's like there's other things you can make bullets out of. Removing lead is a device. Also, there's other applications of lead. Every hardware store has like varieties of lead and materials you can buy. Also, moving to the next one, make bullets $5,000. So making every bullet $5,000. And the thing I love about this one is it touches on something we haven't talked about yet, which is the end result of liberal gun control is always it's for the rich. Guns are for the wealthy. Guns aren't for the poors. Well, if you make it $5,000, then those goddamn poors can't buy no fucking bullets and keep shooting each other.
Right. Well, I mean, even when I was talking about the range situation, like here, the nicer outdoor range that you can go to that's close in proximity to the city is, once again, not only do you have to have a gun club membership, like you have to be an accepted member and pay dues to a gun club, but you also have to pay for your range membership in order to even get access to the range. So price, and even so the NFA is cost prohibitive and was cost prohibitive, and that's one of the reasons for it. It's not about preventing crime. None of this is actually preventing crime. In fact, the NFA itself, because it was, a tax deal and not actual legislation, that's how they got around it being not against the Second Amendment and being able to pass in the first place because it was tax legislation. So it's like it's constantly about this kind of idea of inaccessibility and classism. So it's funny when you see people that are on the left side of things advocating for making things more inaccessible for people that are law abiding citizens. And I suppose it comes down from like their kind of like main overarching belief that like no one should have guns anyways, so maybe that's where it's coming from. But like you said, in a world where we're never going to get rid of guns, making it inaccessible for poor people kind of fucking sucks. If
No,
that's your solution.
definitely, and I like that's why I in my little breakdown I said free and accessible, which one, we already pay the government more than enough taxes for these things to exist. Two, accessibility is so important because sometimes you just want to go pop one off real quick, and
100%.
and it's like, what is safer, having a public range that you can walk to, or a short drive, or just letting one out the window? Obviously, going to a range. And so, this idea of accessibility is so important to me because of one, it reduces those potentially violent accidents or playing around with a gun in a home, but also it removes those barriers, the cost barriers. You mentioned the cost, like we know plenty of friends. Anyone listening to this has friends who simply can't afford that, especially as like the economy continues to be fucked and things of that nature. And it could be a thing where one year you can afford the membership, the next year you can't. Like it's and that's absurd that you lose the ability to shoot outside because you can't pay thousands of dollars. Which like that's the total we're getting into. I don't know if you want to break down the exact cost, but the closest outdoor range to me is hundreds of dollars a year. It's you have to submit an approval, pay a large fee to Azure. I think that like an application fee or something of that nature to even submit an application,
Mm-hmm.
and it's. I think you're right. Some of it does come from in any guns we can remove or anyone we can stop having guns from is better than no one. But I also think it lends to this like inherent idea that, oh, wealthy people are smarter, wealthy people are more responsible. If you can be smart enough to have money, then you're smart enough to have a gun. You won't do anything bad with it, which is just objectively not true.
Incorrect. Just verifiably incorrect.
And so now that we kind of transition and you see that we're reasonable people, I kind of want to go into your personal views if that's okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so what would you describe your politics as? Well, I want to preface that with saying, like, defining yourself as this one like specific thing is pretty cringe, and it's I'm not asking you for like a one word or anything of that nature, but what like how in general would you describe your politics?
Oh my goodness. Sorry, one second. I just lost my light here. Give me one second. Oh, sorry about that. Oh my
No,
goodness.
you're good.
Okay, yeah, so I've been talking about this a lot recently because I feel like as you get older and as you see more and mature, things change for you a little bit. So I tell people nowadays if they ask me that I identify as like quote unquote post left. Um, I think that so much time was spent between 2015 to even to now, um, designating what was right or wasn't right, or putting yourselves into, little cookie cutter categories so that people knew what is going on here. Sorry. Um, but just putting yourself into these like little categories so that people were able to um, choose whether or not they could identify with you, which is something that I feel like has been greatly detrimental to any kind of like left leaning politics whatsoever. I can tell you that I grew up in rural communities for my entire life. And then when I was an adult, I worked seasonal jobs in both the national parks and also in touristy areas and ski resorts. And I saw the vast difference between, you know, people that were very much like working class, and were doing things because, you know, just for the love of the game, because that was the only way that they could do it, was to break their backs, so that they could have, you know, some of this enjoyment in their life, because otherwise they'd have no other opportunity to do it. I've talked specifically about the ski industry and how the problem with designating things like winter sports as a rich people activity has been so detrimental, especially considering the people that power the ski industry being workers, and also it's completely working class backgrounds. um, and so, me personally, I don't really identify as anything. I think that you have to intake information, and that any theory that you read helps to inform your practice, right? So if I, you know, read libertarian literature or theory, or if I read communist theory, or if I read anarchist theory, like, these are all things that I'm taking into in my own mind, be like, okay, this is what I can put into practice. This is how I am able to kind of like look around at my world and see what I can do to change it for the positive. And what it comes down to is, I think that a better world is possible. I think that it is our responsibility to take care of each other, and I think that everyone deserves to have access to, you know, basic needs: healthcare, food, water, shelter, clothing, education. We live in a post-scarcity society. There's no reason that anyone should go without. For the majority of my adult life, I have identified mostly with anarcho-communism or anarcho-syndicalism, and then leaning more into Marxist-Leninist tendencies. But at the same time, I mean, I've been doing political organization since political organizing since about 2015. And even before that, I think I went to my first protest when I was like 10 or 11, because my mom was also like very much left leaning. And so I think that it's important to understand that at the end of the day, your politics are your politics, and they inform what you do. And what I do is try and treat everybody with respect and kindness, and welcoming, you know, open energy. And also know that, you know, there are basic tenets that should be followed in order to take care of everyone, because we have the ability to do so.
No, definitely, and I agree with so much of what you said, especially regarding like meeting needs and things of that nature. Particularly, especially like identifying as anarcho-communist for a period of time. Uh, I think something important I want to mention before we go further into this is, I can speak for both of us. We don't give a fuck what an idea is labeled if it works to further
Exactly.
goals
Which
in
is where I
society.
like which is where I don't even say it anymore. I think it's funny to get a rise out of people if I call myself a communist. Because people do get like real upset about it, and it's just like, I don't fucking care. Like, that's what it comes down to. I don't identify as anything, because the thing is, I'm too fucking busy. I have things to do.
No,
Like,
definitely.
if
Like,
you go talk to like 2017, 2018 me, if you want that shit, like, the world is fucking burning, my friends are on fire, and there's nothing that I can do to help them except for what I have, you know, available to me right now. I don't have time to, you know, get into in-depth discourse. I saw something today that was like, no more discourse. How about I beat you to death with a brick? It's like, I literally, like, I can't do it anymore, because it's like, it's not helpful. It's not productive. What is helpful and productive is, like you were talking about, noticing a need within your community and trying to go out and fulfill it. I have a need within my community of, there are not a lot of sources for people to go out and get, you know, gun education or information in a way that is accessible and friendly and easily understandable for them. And so I'm going to do that. And now that I've gotten into this community, I have so many others. You've got obviously A Better Way 2A, Yeezy to, you know, a certain degree. Also, all I can think of is Yellow Peril Tactical, another incredible
Tactical
resource.
girlfriend is great as
Tactical
well.
girlfriend, exactly. So it's like, now that I've, you know, kind of immersed myself in it, I do see it. But as a person coming from the outside and, you know, coming in, like, I feel like I have something to add to that conversation. And because there's nothing wrong with more, like, more information, more education, you know, more diverse viewpoints. That's why I've decided to, you know, kind of start making content and getting more involved in that in that way. So that's what I politically identify as: fucking tired and busy.
No, definitely. And like I want to be clear, a lot of our, especially around like liberals and even leftists, a lot of our ideas are viewed as conservative or libertarian or but a lot of times even far right. Like legitimately people think we are far right
Oh, I've
because
had people talk to me about that. I literally like I matched with a guy on Tinder that was like, I never would have guessed that you were a Republican. I was like, paused.
I'm sorry, what was that? My headphones went out. What was that?
Oh, I matched with a guy on Tinder and we like went out on a date and I he like was just like, oh, it's so crazy. Like I never would have guessed you were a Republican. And I was like, time out. Hold up. Because people, yeah, people do immediately, they're like anything about guns, it's like immediately it's like a right wing conservative, issue or MAGA or whatever the fuck they want to call it. So it's like that I feel like is another thing of just like being very much like out in the open, like, oh, like, or another perfect example, I was talking to, I was wearing my West Side Gun Club jacket and it's got like all the gun brands or whatever, but it looks like a NASCAR jacket. And I was out at a friend's divorce party actually, and there was this other guy at the bar that was like there with a couple of friends, and we all got started to talking, and he was like, oh my god, I love your jacket so much, is it like NASCAR? And I was like, yeah, it's like in the style of a NASCAR jacket, but these are all like gun companies. It's got like Silencer Co. and Zev and like all that. And he was like, oh. And he's like, what do you know about guns? And I was like, I mean, like, I know a little bit. I like, so I told him, and I just gotten done shooting Mountains of Steel, which is a Steel's competition in PA. And so we started talking, and he was like, wow, that's like really crazy. Like, looking at all of you people, which we're all hardcore kids. So we've got like, tattoos and like, a bunch of like goth baddies up in the bar. And he's like, oh, I would have thought that you guys were all like liberals. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. Gross. And he was like, oh, thank God kind of thing. And I was like, I'm a communist. And then he was like the color drained from his face. It was the funniest shit ever. And that's pretty much the only time that I'll like call myself a communist, is when it's like situations like that where I can have like a little giggle for myself personally. But yeah, it's past that at this point. I don't have any time now to argue about my identity when I should be busy doing things that, further the goals of making sure that everyone that I know is taken care of.
Definitely, and the work you do is your identity, right? Like what you do, how building friendships, learning, teaching people, all of that is your identity, not like some word, like one word or one even phrase. It's so much more than that. And I'm glad you did mention communism, though. First of all, I do want to highlight goth baddies. Absolutely, you all looked hot as shit.
Thank you.
Saw the pictures, and it is so funny. Our good friend Eva, she sent me this Onion headline: fact checking claims about Zoran Mamdani. Claim Mamdani is a communist. And the result is false. Any real communist will happily spend 6 hours explaining why this isn't true.
Yes.
And so there is this like idea around discourse and it being like actually productive. And don't get me wrong, talking at a personal level is productive. But when it's the point of arguing about who wrote this better or what it just doesn't make, like, arguing about the merits of particular works, it doesn't further or help your community at all. And this idea, first I want to target like the communists themselves. There's even anti-gun sentiment among communist neutrals and friends and the communist community in general. Even the grifters, the ACP grifters, that guns are bad or guns are not great, and the idea that they would rather have a red boot than the current boot, and it's just fucking stupid. One of the things I gained, that was actually one of my awakenings of reading theory, and one of my awakenings of was Mao saying, political power goes out of the barrel of a gun, and it's like it clicked and it's like, oh yeah, oh shit, it does. And so ignoring these specific ideas in to like blindly support the CCP or be anti-gun in general, it's kind of ridiculous and absurd. And I just wanted to touch on that. What?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Eva even just got into some things on Twitter with some weird anarchists. There's somebody dropped into the anarchist library, the like in defense of like non-violent whatever, or like how guns are bad, or there's like other weapons that you can use that are like non-lethal or whatever the fuck. Or I don't know, it was so stupid. I wish that I could like, my computer's dead because I just got back home and everything was unplugged when I left. But it essentially just like boiled down to the like, oh, like you're not a good anarchist if you advocate for weapon ownership or gun ownership. And then further on down, somebody commented and was like, I think they were talking about Zona. It was like I asked them, about when they've had to like use a gun, and they said that they were able to defend themselves from a rapist with a gun. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And it's like, okay, so just to get this straight, firstly, you're taking the writing and the understanding of hundreds of people that have the same political ideology as you and completely casting it to the side for this idea of like weird liberal nonviolence. And you're also on top of that as a leftist person who is an anarchist who's better than communists, by the way, because they're so great. Then going further and not believing a woman telling you that they had to defend themselves from sexual assault with a weapon, when you're supposed to be like deconstructing these like pillars of patriarchal society and believing women. It's just like people, and this is why it's like I can't do like the whole fucking discourse thing anymore, is it's just like people are so fucking stupid and everybody thinks that they're right and everybody thinks that they're more educated or have a something more important to say than everyone else. And I think that you should definitely have discussions. You should definitely talk to people, especially people that question your beliefs and like make you think about things, because that's what's important. That's how things get solved. 3 different people coming from different areas coming together and being like, hey, like how can we fix this or how can we solve this? Not everybody is going to have the right idea and not everything is going to be like perfect, but we live in an era where you can just get on the internet and start fucking saying shit. And if you say it the right way, people will just go along with what you say.
No,
which
definitely.
is insane, which is why education's important.
Even in Zona, and I can't pull it up either because I'm currently banned, and it's literally 1984.
Literally, this is just like 1984.
Zona and Eva, in a group that's potentially the most targeted, trans women, being told they're fascist because they want a weapon to defend themselves. And it's like, you can't logically talk. Like, you can't have a rational conversation with people like this because they need to go touch grass. It's so funny. We were, I was messaging with Eva on it that night, and I was at a gathering of anarchists, and we were just chilling, talking, had a bonfire, shooting the shit. And they were still going when I got off, when I left, and this was like hours. And she was like, they're still going. And I'm like, they don't go outside. They don't have real world interactions with other people, much less from other ideologies. They don't have real world interactions with people to understand that this is absolutely insane. Like, you can't sink to a low enough, a so online enough level that it begins to make sense.
Right. And I think that's like when people, so whenever this conversation of like what my like political ideology is or my values are, this always comes up, and it's the whole like crazy leftist infighting situation, where it's just these conversations that people are talking about. I have friends that are anarchists. I have friends that are communists. I have friends that are libertarians. I have friends that are Republicans, like classic Republicans. I give them shit all the fucking time, and we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But also, these are people that I feel like are deeply uninformed and have actually like kind of like reconsidered a lot of their beliefs, you know, as they've gotten older and as they've kind of seen the world. Because like these aren't people that hate people, they're just people that once again are throwing their hands up in the air saying, I've done everything correctly, I did everything that you told me, and everything is still fucking bad. It's because there's a deeper issue, right?
No, definitely. And I think actually having experiences with those people, talking to them, anarcho pilling them, you may say, like talking to them when it's like someone mentions how bad the healthcare system is, and it's like, damn, yeah, it is really bad, huh?
I do
Imagine.
that shit all the time. I go back home to, you know, fucking rural South Dakota and I talk to all my fucking, like, my old school cowboys and I talk about this shit all the time. And I'm like, that's communism. I don't say that. I would never say that to one of them because I love them dearly and it would cause their heart to explode in their chest. However, like, this idea of like this quote unquote leftist infighting, like the problem is there's a lot of people that don't know what the fuck to do. Firstly, regardless, nobody has given me a solid answer on what we're supposed to do. Like, how do we get to this end result? We have to follow certain, like, you know, we have to follow procedures that work. We have to build community. We have to talk to our fucking neighbors. We need to go the fuck outside. We need to get off of our fucking phones. We need to get off the internet just in general, right? And so it's just kind of like, it's always weird seeing these people online because it doesn't matter. At this point, I'm not completely unconvinced that they're not fucking federal agents because at this point it's like I can't imagine saying some of the shit that these people say. So here it is. Fuck it, resharing this pipe bomb and logging off. Read it or don't. Engage in good faith or call it lib trash. I don't give a shit. Either way, guns are not the only armament, and U.S. gun culture is self-imposed impotence that reifies policing constantly. And it's an anarchist anti-gun manifesto. I haven't read it. I ain't gonna read it. I got shit to do. I would rather play League of Legends. I'm gonna be completely honest. Um,
I would rather eat a stick than read that. I would. There are
right.
so many things I'd rather do than read that, and I think that's. I
Maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's on me for like not going through and actually reading it and choosing to engage in good faith. But it's really, really incredibly difficult for me to quote unquote engage in good faith when I know that this person is not. Like, there's
yeah.
no way that this
No.
person has any kind of experience with firearms, or I feel like even has read anarchist literature. I see stuff like this and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
No,
But
definitely. And you mentioned it's like when we see people in bad engaging in bad faith with our friends, it what is the point of reaching out? There's no point in reading it. I have read it. It's stupid as fuck.
okay,
I
there you go. Perfect.
immediately
I didn't even need to do it because you did
no.
it. So that's like great.
This was a few months ago. It comes up every few months, and it's in general the same group of quote unquote anarchists, and there. I think that's a lot of the messaging problem. Is like, hey, read this dissertation. And in reality, I think the best anarchist messaging is saying, do we really need a license to do this at blank activity? Do we really need a license to fish? Or do we really need a license to do this in our own home? Zoning restrictions, things of that nature, are much more easy. You can connect with people easily with those discussions as opposed to being like, in this essay I will discuss why gun bad,
Right.
and you really can't reason with these people. And I do think it's not just, I don't want to pick on just the left or just anarchists or liberals, because this is a huge problem on the right, and not just the right as a whole, I would say.
Oh yeah, and we're seeing all of this is coming to light now, and like normal people know who Nick Fuentes is, which is fucking insane. Because I just like I feel like I've existed in this like lovely, weird, you know, brainworm echo chamber where it's like I've been aware of all of this stuff for a very long time, but now I'm having people that I know are normal. Like I know you're normal. I'm not normal, but I know they're normal, and they're like asking me questions about this like femboy situation, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, dude. I tried to tell you. I tried to tell you in like 2019, 2020. I was having conversations with you and you were looking at me like I was a fucking crazy person because I was. But I was just early to the party, it would seem.
No, definitely, and it's the same way. Like my wife is completely offline in general, aside from like Facebook sharing, local friends and things like that. And the other day she asked me about that, about Nick Fuentes, and I was like raising the proverbial gun to my mouth. I was like, no one should have to think or talk about this. We were and are, in general, too online.
Yes.
No one, normies should not have to experience this. It's absolutely insane. And I one thing from the right wing gun culture that really frustrates me, and in general, I know it's often said in jest, but as a former ANCOM, I get a little butthurt when people are like, gun culture in general, gun people in general say, I can be friends with anyone but a communist. And it's like, I don't know. I think you would have really liked some of Mao's ideas. And one of my funniest quotes, one of my funniest posts that I still love is RK, the first time he died, proverbially on Twitter. I made a post with Karl Marx's quote: "The disarmament must be uh, by any means necessary.
Frustrated. Yeah, by
Frustrated
any
by any
means
means necessary." Yeah, absolutely. And people were like, "Wait, what? I think this was Karl Marx." And it's like, yeah, that
Yeah, it was.
you should see the like crossover in these things. But there's this giant anti-communist, and I think it is a lot of this, like the Steven Crowder cringe lords. He was one of the first that did the Che shirt. And we, by any means, are not co-signing everything a communist did. But when you see these helicopter memes, I want it to be clear: Pinochet was evil.
Yes.
He was backed by the U.S. deep state, literally backed by the CIA, installed by the CIA, and he protected Nazi pedos.
Yeah.
Paul Schaefer invited boys to his living quarters for private prayer. He raped boys in Germany. He was dismissed as a youth leader in Germany because of his sexual abuse. Do you know how abusive you had to be to, in the 1930s and 40s, be dismissed as a church youth leader? You know how rapey you had to be to do that? Like, that's insane. And then he goes to Chile, and he is essentially running a torture camp, black site, whatever you want to call it. That's the term we would use today. Running a torture camp, separating these, essentially a cult, separating kids from parents. We obviously know what he was doing to those kids. And so when you're posting these helicopter memes, posting these funny ha-has, it is, that's like what you're supporting. That's what you're promoting. I like this idea. And there is a difference. I will give credit. There's a difference between I like this idea and endorsing everything. We talked about that, right? But
Right.
it's to the point where there's Pinochet accounts. There's people referencing Pinochet as, yeah, I like what he did, not just posting a helicopter meme.
But I think that there's a lot of these people that are like white supremacist Nazis.
No, definitely. And
I think with the anti-communism stuff, I think that a lot of it comes from I have this shit happen to me all the time, right? Where people will post some stuff, but then they like still follow me, and I don't know if it's because I'm like a woman, so it's like easier for me to like to talk to me, or if they're like fucking simp, which is also fine. Be a simp, be a reply guy. It's great. I'm a reply guy and a simp too, so it's like it's a mutual love connection, right? But I do frequently call myself God's favorite communist because I can have conversations and like be friends with all of these people. And the second that I start talking about it, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is why it's like I've tried to like I try and tell people it's like communism and like a belief structure and a political theory and a political ideology are completely different from like what has been put into practice. And if someone's not actually doing what communism says, that makes them not communist, regardless of what they said, right? So like even like national socialists, like what they're doing is not socialism, which makes them not socialists. They can say that there's something, but it doesn't necessarily make them one thing or another. And you don't have to, once again, you don't have to like red stamp every single thing that every communist leader has ever done or said, or every communist philosopher or, you know, political, figure has said or done. No, once again, like I mentioned earlier, it's like anything that you intake is supposed to help inform and fully shape and flush out how you practice what you already believe ethically and morally. I identify closest to that, so that's where I go, you know?
No, definitely. And I think people will find pro-gun people in general who aren't into politics, or their idea of politics is blue versus red, which is just
Right.
fucking insane.
Well,
Uh,
many people just are so propagandized too. They don't even have a concept of what communism is. They just see Russia bad
no,
a lot of the
definitely.
time.
No, definitely. They see hammer sickle bad, and obviously not condoning. I mean, I don't know if people know, or but you talk about it frequently. You're Roma. You're Roma. You're a
Hmm.
Roma person, and you obviously the Soviets were brutal, like to the Roma people,
Hmm.
murdered them in mass, and it's like you're obviously not saying co-signing Stalin or co-signing any of these things. You're simply living out this belief structure as opposed to worshiping this politician, which politician worship is a huge part of what's wrong with this entire situation.
Right, exactly. I do not worship a politician. That's weird as fuck.
It is weird as fuck, but you see
Simp
these.
behavior.
That actually yes, you can be a reply guy to cute e girls and cute e boys, femboys, whatever you would like, but do not be a politician reply guy. We will roast your shit for that. That's fucking
Weird as
corny.
fuck, dude.
So fucking weird. So fucking weird. And but you see these accounts. We talked just about Pinochet, but like MAGA accounts. We see Kamala Hive accounts, and it kind of touches on that conversation we had earlier, where it's creating this definition for yourself, defining yourself with a label or with a person's platform, and it's like that shit is so fucking weird, not productive on either side, and won't go anywhere productive. Uh,
Right.
like even you still have obviously the Trump administration. Many people have said, "Hey, they aren't pro-gun," much more than the first time around, for sure. They aren't pro-freedom, but you still have MAGA accounts attacking these right-wing people who are saying these things.
Right.
And so I think politician worship really as a whole kind of circles in and said like that's a problem not only with the communists that have the Lenin in their bio, Marxist Leninist late term Maoist, like 30 words. I don't give a fuck. I read as much as I want to. I just want people to have gun and eat. That's pretty much it. Uh,
Yeah.
and it kind of has prevented these political things we talked about earlier. Politician worship has prevented gun control being a like as far as it's prevented gun control from actually. I'm trying to think of how to word this. It's prevented gun violence from being addressed, I should say. So
Right. Actual actionable like things from to help with gun violence, to help with and a problem within this country. Because once again, it comes down to like there's so many things that could be addressed if we just like I don't know, man. It's so shitty because it's like there's things that we have proven that these things work. We have seen it work, but people want too much to, worship a golden calf. Personally, me, I'm a follower of Jesus, so I'm not trying to worship a politician, especially not someone like Donald Trump, especially not after he says something like, what did he say? Oh, I'm not bound for heaven. I don't think I'm going to heaven. Like, it's insane watching people kind of talk themselves in circles to fucking dick ride this absolute fucking blob of a person.
No, they'll justify anything, and it's not only the red tape we were talking about earlier, but the humping of the red tape. The people on both sides that just love. They say we don't want
Up
this
on
red
me,
tape.
daddy.
Yeah, no, exactly. Take me up. Literally, it looks like your mentions. That's what it looks like.
Sometimes, yeah.
But I want to touch on like kind of wrapping it all back up. Communist ideas that get you called a communist that would definitively help universal health care. If more people had mental health care access, and this isn't just a left or right. Nobody in our government legitimately wants people to have health care. I can't be convinced of it. They don't give a
Except
fuck.
for Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, based Marjorie.
Base Marjorie.
We're gonna see Marjorie Red Eye edits soon. Which hey,
Honestly.
she also did mention she's anti-Israel, which I mean,
And pro-Palestine, not just anti-Israel.
and pro-Palestine. So not to get it like not to give it away, but maybe we're canvassing for her in 2028.
I don't know.
Um,
Like that's the thing as well as like I mean people say like oh it's too late and maybe this will get me fucking dunked on in the fucking comments or whatever but like I feel like that's kind of like a perfect illustration of what happens when people actually like start to learn about stuff, right? Because Marjorie Taylor Greene was what she was like a business owner who was like blah, blah, about fucking Trump, right? And
mhm.
that's like how she got to her position and then she got in and you kind of watch her go through the motions of like seeing this stuff and like how it happens and like what was going on and then like also being like okay so now that I have a bird's eye view of this and now that I actually understand like the processes that are ongoing like this is wrong and she's like come out to say it and she has also actively been like just so you know by the way I'm completely mentally competent and if anything happens to me like look into it, but like fucking release the Epstein files. We should have fucking free universal health care. We should have fucking education for people. Fuck Israel, free Palestine, which was not what I was expecting from Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene. But, you know, I
Yeah, I
feel like
think
people can change, especially if you come from like a place of like not being very educated, knowing that something is going to get your foot in the door and knowing that something's going to be beneficial to you, and then getting in and seeing like, oh shit, everything is actually really fucked up. I think that that's definitely an environment for growth, unfortunately. But
no, definitely, and I think a lot of people are in that space of not informed, not by their own fault, even necessarily. Obviously, some people want to stay uninformed, but by how propaganda works, how society has built this entire structure, how the United States is set up in general. One thing else I want to talk about too, we talk about virtue signaling and these politicians not caring about veterans, right? Any mental health care, when we talk about gun bans and things of that nature, 4473, it recently came up under the comments and in quote tweets of a lot of our friends, ban guns from trans people, and a lot of people that had Pro 2A in their bio, the same ones that have Thin Blue Line in their bio, talking about a 4473 banning guns from trans people. And I have a little thing I want to read here. This is the actual verbiage on the 4473. Have you ever been adjudicated mentally defective? Basically, by a court, or have you ever been committed to a mental institution? Involuntarily committed. So,
right.
the idea that simply being trans or having ADD or having autism, any of these things can immediately deny you a right, the veterans would be disproportionately affected
Immediately.
immediately. PTSD, and these structures that we talk about helping people in general would help veterans. We need to meet the needs of people that come home fucked up.
Absolutely.
We need to meet their needs. They signed their life away in exchange for whatever with the government. And you can argue, obviously, we briefly talked about it earlier, but being preyed on as children by recruiters visiting lower income, potentially different demographic schools, and they need to be taken care of. And yet, both sides say this, and neither side does anything. It's almost like every issue we bring up is covered in red tape, and these people are evil bastards.
Yeah, I think that that's actually the case, is that everything is covered up in red tape and they're all evil fucking bastards. And that's, I mean, I, once again, like, especially with my, like, beliefs, I don't support, like, the military industrial complex, but I also understand that there's, like, complex machinations within this country that, you know, use young men and women as cannon fodder, because it makes them money. My very good friend who's like my big brother is in the Air Force, about to get out of the Air Force because of like all of the shit that's fucking going on. But like I have like plenty of friends. I grew up right next to Ellsworth Air Force Base. I have plenty of friends that are in the Air Force, plenty of friends that are in the service. I've had friends that are in the service my entire life. And I understand that like everybody gets in for different reasons. I don't think that the United States military industrial complex is a good fucking thing, but I do think that the thing is like for a lot of people that seems like their only resource because they, you know, aren't informed, or it really truly is like the only thing that they can do to escape, you know, bad situations, and it is available and it is predatory. But at the same time, if I acknowledge all of those things, then I also have to acknowledge that we need to give them care afterwards. And yes, like I don't necessarily believe that, anyone in the United States military is necessarily fighting for freedom, because what are we doing? Like, all of these people that are making tons and tons of money off of the backs of, dead fucking kids, um, are continuing to push this. But I do think that we need to, take care of and protect the people when they come home. I think that that's really important. And it's
No, definitely. And I think often on the left in particular, they're viewed as like, or I should say communist. A lot of it is the communist that obviously we don't support the military industrial complex, the bad things, the horrible things done. Uh, a lot of gun people do, but that's a different topic for a different day. But the idea that every one of these people is bad and so they don't deserve X or don't deserve Y from both sides is fucking stupid. I don't care. Are our beliefs going to align with every military member? Of fucking course not. It's not. It's not a like. It's not a monolith. And even if it was, that just doesn't make sense to apply your logic like that. I think, and I think I'll speak for you here too. People deserve healthcare whether I personally agree with their beliefs or not. People
correct.
deserve food whether I personally agree with their beliefs or not. People
Correct.
deserve to defend themselves if we personally believe with their beliefs or not. And so, going back to those original points, meeting these needs is a requirement. Like, to improve, we have to meet these needs, not just of veterans, not on the right, and not just of, or I should say, people on the right, not politicians. That goes without saying, but vulnerable people that the left pretend like virtue signals about protecting. Everyone needs to have access to these things, have access to education. And with those steps, I think that's where a functional society comes. But like we talked about originally, who's it up to? It's up to you, the listener, me individually, Tali individually, talking to our community, growing community, being friendly, being memorable, being helpful. Uh, do you care if I share your personal bar anecdote from this weekend or this past weekend?
Which one?
Well, you share it. Obviously, you're the storyteller.
Oh, the guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
bartender. Yes.
Oh, you want me to talk about it?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sorry.
No, you're
No,
good.
we had the I was down in North Carolina, and there was a situation where there was these two guys that came in. I think they were working construction, so they were from away, and then they came into the bar and immediately started popping off with some like crazy shit. One of them was talking to the other, and I overheard them like having a conversation about how like one girl had said to them like, oh, like, yeah, we'll take shots and put it on this guy's tab or whatever. And he was like, yeah, fucking right guy, wrong day, bitch, or whatever the fuck. And I was like, yo, that's crazy. And I just looked, I made eye contact with this woman, and I was like, you're so brave. I've been there. I have been there. But then they started to like look through like the merch on like the for the bar or whatever. And one of the guys pulled out like a tank top, and the other guy started calling him like fucking like gay and like being all sorts of derogatory, whatever. And I was like, I think he's like fine in the tank top, like it's fine. And then, man, did I open a fucking can of worms, because then they got both up in my face and my friend that I was with's face, and were being derogatory and like way up in our personal space. It was super fucking shitty. And she like diverted it. She was able to like get them out of the bar and to another bar, and diffuse the situation really beautifully. And I felt so fucking bad for just like even opening my mouth and like making it worse. There was another bar patron there as well who was like observing and talked about it afterwards. Um, but then I was like, hey guys, like if you can, like she just like saved my fucking ass from a bunch of like drunk fucking douchebags. Like here's her Venmo, because like obviously she's in Asheville, North Carolina. But here's her Venmo, like fucking help her out. And obviously like Asheville being affected by the hurricanes, like, everybody is needing help down there just still and continuously. But a lot of the bars there, surprisingly enough, have like the Venmo cutouts for like the bartenders, and they're like, fuck the government, like just tip me here or whatever, which I thought was great. But I put it on Twitter, and a bunch of people were able to like send her some money, and I went back the next day and got to say hi and was like, I'm so sorry again for like instigating that in my own, small part. And she was like, no, 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 oh my God, like, thank you guys so much. Like, my Venmo interactions just like kept going off at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't know what was going on. So like, thank you so much. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. It was a very wholesome moment.
No, definitely. And that's what community is. And that's like the difference you can make simply as an individual, right? And not even being in it like someone being there for you making the difference, right? And it's like she established that.
She doesn't know me. She doesn't know me from Adam. And still she like, defended me and my friend and got the guys out of there. And
No, that's right. And it didn't matter like what your politics were or anything of that nature. And it's like that's what we talk by going outside, meeting people, experiences that could have been negative turned into a like huge positive. And her feeling the love from people and people being able to donate and saying, hey, I've been there before. Like, more people need to do this. And that's what I think community is. Like, that's what's so important to me as far as building what we want to see in the gun community, right? We have to recreate that behavior in every way possible.
Exactly.
And I think that's my ultimate goal is getting it to be more friendly and more accepting and more available to everyone, being accessible, people getting to shoot guns, and just general improving people's interactions with guns, whether they be liberal or conservative FUD that shoots his shotgun once a year before deer season. And that's kind of my ideal world to build. Now that we're kind of wrapping up, I do want to plug a couple things. I didn't really find a way because it was pretty heavy conversation. You see me soy jacking by the mental health couch here. Where am I? Oh, there I am. Soy jack by the mental health couch. I'm wearing the FGC 9 Lives Hawaiian button down from Control Pew. Use code LEMONADE, LEMONAID for 5% off any purchases. Many of our friends have stuff in here. Go search. They have tons of cool stickers, hoodies, hats, cleaning mats, things of that nature. And at MAF, use code Lemon Snowcone, Lemon SNOW Cone, for 10% off. They have the limited edition Glock Gen 3 that is going away fast. Go get it now. Fast, fast, fast. It's going to be gone by the time you look at this. Go, go, go. And then Tali, go ahead and plug. I've got the Better Way 2A site pulled up here. Go ahead and plug your code and everything that you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, so a Better Way 2A, I saw the code for free shipping on that. It's MercyMain, MERCYMAIN. Yep, MercyMain, for free shipping for a Better Way 2A. And then obviously if you guys would like to give me a follow and follow along on my gun journey or whatever, you can find me on Instagram at neighborhoodactual.
Awesome. I'm going to pull up your Instagram so they can see. I loved the first. I'm not going to split it. I'm going to pull it up here. And for listeners, you're just going to have to go view it. Neighborhood Actual. This sick, the sick Mr. Rogers post. Sick as hell.
Which one?
Oh, well, the first Mr. Rogers with the gun. Sick as fuck. But then you've got the tie with the sweater hand. And over the Glock, so fire, so
thank
cool.
Thank you.
I highly recommend you guys go follow her. She's gonna have more stuff coming out. By the time this video's out, she'll have more stuff out. And here you see Armed Minorities Are Hard to Repress working with the Better Way 2A guys. We love Jordan and his cute little mustache. But that is all, and we will talk to you guys later. You'll hear from me on the next episode of Keyholing, and go follow Tali at Neighborhood Actual to hear more from her.